Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Dr. Carson, it's a privilege to be here to talk about one of the most culturally and legally significant issues of the day, which is religious liberty for our religious schools, parents, and families. I'm John Bursch, Vice President of Appellate Advocacy with Alliance Defending Freedom. I've argued 13 U.S. Supreme Court cases, and the court has granted 6 of our last 7 requests to hear our cases, and so many of these involve the issues that we're talking about. I'll briefly address 5 points. First, religious freedom is critical for faith-based schools, and that is under attack. We all understand that religious liberty is not merely the right to practice your faith in your place of worship. As Commissioner Metaxas said this morning, it's about the right to live out religious truths in society. And that's why faith-based schools exist, because parents, families, and communities want education to be grounded in truth, virtue, and eternal goals. They're not just private versions of public schools. But increasingly, government officials are attacking schools' religious freedom. You've heard several examples. Another is the Lyceum, a small Catholic prep school in South Euclid, Ohio. We had the privilege of representing them, and they had to sue to protect their rights when the city council passed a sweeping ordinance that required them to hire teachers and enroll students who disagree with its mission and teachings on matters of human sexuality, such as hiring teachers in same-sex relationships. They could be fined. They could even spend time in jail if they violated this. There was a draft of the ordinance that had a specific religious exemption in it. The council intentionally took it out, and that forced the school to decide if they would give up its faith, which it would never do, or close. Fortunately, they were able to sue and were successful. But these religious education opportunities teach character traits that we should value as a society: seeking the good of others, providing a framework for understanding the world, strengthening community bonds. Government should be encouraging these type of values to be taught in our citizens and not discriminating against them because of their religious beliefs. Second, religious freedom is critical for the families and the children who choose them. The Supreme Court has long recognized, 100 years, that parents have a fundamental right to direct their children's upbringing, including their education. But there are many school choice programs that are intentionally designed to exclude religious schools. Famously, you all know about the Carson v. Macon case, where the Supreme Court held that Maine's improper exclusion of religious schools for their town tuitioning program was unconstitutional. What's less well known is that before that decision, in anticipation of it, the Maine legislature amended its laws to require religious schools to comply with the state's LGBTQ orthodoxy in order to get those funds. And so they're still not getting paid. The schools are in litigation right now. And in Colorado, the state excluded Darren Patterson Christian Academy from a state-funded grant for preschool programs unless the academy agreed to hire employees who don't share its faith and to alter their internal rules and policies based on sexuality and gender, including restroom usage, pronouns, dress codes, and even student housing during field trips. And these are the kinds of laws that punish families and schools for making the choices to teach religious education. Third, religious liberty is under attack in schools. You've heard from all of our panelists about that. I want to just focus in on what Michigan is doing to Sacred Heart, Father Sirico's school that he founded. Following that Michigan Supreme Court decision, the Michigan legislature codified it by amending its education laws to comply with that statute and requiring Michigan schools to hide the truth about marriage and the human body. So under that amended law, Sacred Heart not only has to hire staff who seek to overturn the Catholic Church's teaching on marriage and use preferred pronouns, allow males who identify as girls to be on the female athletic teams and use the girls' locker rooms, but they have to refrain from teaching St. Pope John Paul II's theology of the body or Pope Francis's teachings about gender ideology. If they even post those on their website, they're in violation of state law. And yet when there was a religious exemption proposed in the legislature, it was turned down. The governor signed that discriminatory law, and Attorney General Dana Nessel has fought ferociously to defend it against their free exercise claims. Fourth point, the president and his administration can do much to protect religious liberty. Hopeful that at the end of all the evidence that you're gathering that you'll urge him to direct executive agencies to ensure that federal funds never come with strings attached that require schools to violate their conscience, and to require that states and local governments respect religious liberty. You can tell Michigan, you can tell New York, you can tell accreditation agencies, you cannot do this. The president can appoint departmental leaders who will protect religious liberty instead of erode it. And most important, he can use the presidential platform to encourage Congress to enact laws. Talking about this stuff is great. Executive orders are great. But unless we have permanent change with legislation, these problems are going to continue to exist. And he should use that platform to explain why religious liberty in schools is so important. Finally, the Supreme Court has consistently acted to protect religious liberty in the schools, but there's so much more to do. In Our Lady of Guadalupe, the court reaffirmed the ministerial exception. You're all familiar with that. We're hopeful the Supreme Court will soon supplement that by recognizing that religious organizations, including schools, have the right to hire co-religionists too. If a Christian school believes that every employee's duties includes inculcating the church's teachings in the students, they shouldn't have to hire a secular atheist in the cafeteria or on the janitorial staff whose goal is to turn students away from God. We need that protection. That trilogy of cases that began with Trinity Lutheran, that was an ADF case, then Espinoza culminating in Carson. You can see how easily Maine is trying to circumvent that with its shenanigans about its LGBTQ law. Just last term in Mahmoud, the Supreme Court definitively pronounced that parents have a First Amendment right to direct their children's upbringing and education consistent with their parents' faith. You'll recall that that case was about LGBTQ school materials that were being peddled to kids as young as 4 years old without parents being told about that or having an opportunity to opt out. The court said many Americans, like the parents in this case, believe that biological sex reflects divine creation, that sex and gender are inseparable, and that children should be encouraged to accept their sex and to live accordingly. These are fundamental rights, but activists have already said that they're going to fight against this ruling and promised that they'll make religious families bend the knee to LGBTQ orthodoxy, and that means shutting down their schools if necessary. So in conclusion, religious liberty should not be a partisan issue. It's a matter of human dignity, family rights, and national flourishing. Our nation will continue to benefit from generations of young people formed both in knowledge and virtue if faith-based schools are protected to live out their missions and families are free to choose them. Conversely, if that liberty is impaired, our country will be worse for it educationally, culturally, and spiritually. When we lose social work programs at Christian universities because of hostile accreditation agencies, that's a problem. So I encourage you to do everything that you can to advocate that the federal government take real meaningful steps to make these protections put in place in law, because doing so will ensure that faith-based education remains a beacon of truth, hope, and human flourishing in this country for many generations to come. Thank you.